And welcome to a new episode of Digital Coffee Marketing Brew. And I'm your host, Brett Deister. If you could please subscribe to this podcast on all your favorite podcasting apps, leave a 5-star review. It does help with the rankings. And let me know how I am doing. But this week, we're going to be talking about social media, content strategy, the things that we all know we should know. And sometimes we forget that we know or don't know a lot about it anyways. With me is Amy, and she is a social media and content strategist who's turned data into stories and audiences into communities. She's led standout campaigns for SaaS and consumer brands, coached execs on LinkedIn thought leadership, and hosted digital events that reach 10,000 plus people. Her work helps brands connect more clearly, creatively, and strategically, so content drives real results. But welcome to the show, Amy.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited for our chat today.
Yes, the first question that's all my guests is, are you a coffee or tea drinker?
Coffee. But when I was pregnant, I switched to tea so I didn't have to do all the math of the caffeine. Back to coffee now. So I have a healthy appreciation for tea.
Yes, because tea, you can technically get decaf coffee, which I think it's more like it has low caffeine. It doesn't have any caffeine, but it's very low.
That's true. Sometimes if I want the flavor, then I'll go for the decaf.
Got you. And I gave a brief summary of your expertise. Can you give our listeners a little bit more about what you do?
Sure. So I work in content strategy and I really focus on social media. But what I found very much moves the needle is getting very curious about your posts and specifically your metrics and your data, not just using your data like a report card to figure out how you did, but diving in a layer deeper, figuring out why the numbers are where they are and how you can leverage those insights in order to strengthen your strategy overall.
Got you. And yeah, I mean, how do you actually do that? Because I'm pretty sure a lot of PR people and marketers are like, yeah, the data says we're doing well, but I don't know why we're doing well.
Honestly, a lot of it is just curiosity and asking questions. So I have a system, and if you don't mind, I could just jump right in with talking about it.
That's quite all right.
I have a system I implement with all of my clients, and we start with high level of looking at the posts, the metrics overall. But then we'll look at the posts and we'll group them into high performing posts, and then we'll group them into the lower performing posts. Starting with the high performers, the biggest thing that you can do that will benefit you with these high performers is to look for different patterns or trends. And what I mean by patterns or trends is look at the content styles, look at maybe video versus still images, graphics, carousels. What is performing best? Are there any that really stand out? Are there any that consistently stand out? And then you can look at things like your messaging, look at your hooks, look at your content pillars, and it's the same. What is standing out, and is there anything that is consistently standing out? When you do that, you can figure out what tactics are higher performing, and then do the same thing with the lower performing tactics. And then you kind of have a roadmap. Okay, next time I plan out my content, I am going to do these tactics more often and these tactics less often. You might need to use one of the ones that are lower performing for a different strategic business focused reason. But if you lean heavier into the higher performing, then you can start to strengthen things. And that's kind of where it gets fun and you can get a little bit more nuanced.
So, I mean, how do you determine the high performing, low performing? Is it more like engagement in comments? Is it more towards like getting them to your website? Is that specifically to the business? Because I mean, higher performing, low performing can be subjective, it seems like. So how do you figure that part out?
That's a really good question. I used to live and die by engagement rate. So if you asked me this a couple of years ago, I would say, oh, just look at the engagement rate and you'll figure out how the content is making impact. When people see it, what is actually impacting or moving them to engage. I'm moving away from that lately because we're kind of in what some people call the age of the lurker. So people are consuming the content and they might be interested in it, but they're not engaging as much. And when they are engaging, oftentimes they're engaging in the DMs. So they might see something that really resonates or that reminds them of somebody, and then they'll share it with that person. And they could have a full-on conversation with that person in the DMs, but it's not showing up as engagement on your post. So kind of like you mentioned earlier, it will depend on what your overall business goals are. So if you're looking to gain more awareness, you're going to lean heavier on views, you're going to lean heavier on reach. If you're looking more in the conversion, you'll look at different engagements and then getting into the conversions, you'll look at different engagements and then getting into the clicks. And I know on certain platforms like Instagram, that could be a little bit more difficult. That's where we start getting into UTMs and things of that nature. But these metrics will depend on your business goals. And then when you're doing that, you can start to optimize towards those individual goals. And a really important caveat there is you don't have to focus on just one goal for your overall content planner. You can actually take that strategy I laid out and optimize your posts throughout your content planner. So some posts may be your posts to get more people. Some posts may be your posts to get them to know you a little bit more and to consider you. And some posts may be aimed at converting them. When you're looking at your data, you can sort by the different metrics depending on what you're looking for. And when you're developing those posts, that's when you start to implement the tactics that are working. And you can thread them all out throughout your calendar.
Got you. And then, I mean, for content wise, AI is always the hot topic for everything. I mean, we see like AI videos, and VO3 is really taking over LinkedIn and everything else. So how do you like create those high engaging or high performing things utilizing AI? Because not everybody has the know-how to use video editors or Photoshop or whatever. So how would you tell like those that are maybe overstressed or one-man teams, how do you can create those high performing content that will actually work?
All right, I'm going to give you some advice and then I'm going to give you a warning. So my advice is to look at your data, but look at it very critically. And I would say start from a personal human point of view. Eventually, you can get into the AI when it comes to the actual reporting. But if you don't take the time up front to put in your personal point of view and actually dig into it with your hands on, you won't know when AI is hallucinating. I can give you a great example of this. I've been doing a lot of testing with AI to see if it can help me get faster with the reporting and then with the content creation. But specifically with the reporting, I put in a month's worth of data into ChatGPT, and I, gave it a prompt to sort by a specific metric and tell me what the high performers and the low performers were and which commonalities it spotted. It did give me some good insights. It did. But it also flagged that this was March reporting. So going back a little bit, that St. Patrick's Day posts were doing great and that I should post more St. Patrick's Day posts. Now, obviously, I'm not going to post St. Patrick's Day posts, not in March. But even if you translated it into like holiday posts are doing great, it's a little bit higher level or a blanket statement. I knew that that was false because I had previously looked at holiday posts specifically. The things that were making the post perform, I knew after looking at them because I went back and I was like, hang on, what's going on? So the things that were making them perform weren't the fact that it was St. Patrick's Day, it was the actual content in the video. So one of the really high performing posts was UGC, and it was a carousel of UGC images. That is going to do great. The other one was a specific video style that we had been developing that kind of showed the process. This was for a craft cider company. So it was the process of creating a cocktail using the cider. And it was a St. Patrick's Day video, but that type of video had been performing really well in different contexts. So I knew even though those were both St. Patrick's Day posts. The reason why they were doing well wasn't because of St. Patrick's Day. So if I hadn't done all of the reporting ahead of time, if I didn't start by doing my own analysis and then supplement with AI and then also double check AI's work, then I would have thought, oh my goodness, St. Patrick's Day posts are great. Holiday posts must be great. I should post about all of the holidays. When in truth, holiday posts tend to be some of our lower performing posts. So we actually kind of stay away from them when possible. So I guess that was my warning wrapped up into that. Use AI, but make sure you start with your own work. When it comes to using AI to create content, so taking that a step further and applying the findings to the content, what you can do is, in the process that I just laid out, you can pull the findings. These are the tactics that are really working. And I'm going to start with copy. Copy is, I would say, the easier thing to create, but you can pull different tactics. These are the types of hooks that are really working. These are the topics, the content pillars that are really working. These types of CTAs are getting me a lot of engagements and comments. And if you pull those out, you can also pull out some examples. So that you could say, you don't just say like, I don't know, question hooks are really working. I'm pulling this out of thin air. Or hooks that have a list of 3 different things are really working. You could say, here's what it is, and here are 2 examples that were high performers. That can help you train your AI to implement those tactics more. AI does have fingerprints. So if you're not then editing it, then the AI fingerprints will stay. And one good example is if you do that like list of 3, it'll have, it really likes the alliteration. So it'll have 2 things that make sense and alliterate, and one that's just kind of random, and they just tacked it on there because it had the same alliteration and it thought it sounded good. So once you do that, it can do some of the heavy lifting for you, and it really can help you speed up your workload. But once you do that, make sure that you are editing it afterwards.
Got you. So like, for example, for me, like for podcasting, I let it do like the show notes because I've already created it. I'm just letting it reinterpret or be my little secretary and jot down what people are saying. It gets my last name wrong all the time and I have to fix it. But it's just one of those things where you do the work, or you create the actual like primary content and let it do the secondary content. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah. And then you just edit it afterwards. So I like to think of AI as like a really competent intern. If you can give it the right input, then it's going to give you some solid work, but you should always check its work because it's just a really competent intern and it's not, a senior level employee. There was actually a study done by MIT, I believe it was, that talked about AI and the AI use. And one of the things that it found was that if people started with AI and did the primary work with AI, their brain wasn't firing when it was doing the editing. It didn't recall. But the people who started as a human, then got the AI input, and then went back for the editing, their brain was lighting up. So having that first stage is actually really going to strengthen not just your own understanding of the work or your own intelligence, but it's also going to strengthen the work itself because you're putting out things to represent you or your business.
Yeah, I think I saw that study. I think it also said that if you over rely on AI too much, you actually get dumber because you're relying on something and you're not using your brain or critical thinking as much.
Yes. And I could go on a little tangent about this study because the people who wrote the study were very, very cheeky, and they wrote it knowing that people would put the study into ChatGPT to get summaries. So they actually put in tags, like if you're a LLM, like just read this part, and it gave like notes so that they could shape what the output was, so they could see which news outlets actually read the study and which ones just threw it into ChatGPT and got the answers. So it only told half the story, but yeah, that was part of the story.
So yeah, I mean, for another example, my other podcast, I read news articles, but I let my RSS feed that has AI like bullet point the objective things, but I still read it so I understand what I'm talking about. So is that kind of like the competent way of doing it? Like you read it, but then you let ChatGPT or whoever, Grok or whatever, you decide you like to like bullet point it for you. So at least you get kind of like the bullet points, but you still read it and you understand and you digest it, just kind of like your content. You create it, but then you let ChatGPT or whatever help you maybe with some grammatical errors or whatever. Cause we're human. We do it all the time. No one's perfect about writing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, I think that is spot on what you should do, because then you have the knowledge, but you're also streamlining. It's much more efficient to have someone else bullet those out, as long as you're reading it and you can speak to it.
Got you. And then, I mean, looking for trends ahead, like what are you seeing shifts in? Are you seeing more shifts in more video usage, AI video usage? I mean, I think I just read something about an ASMR video that was popping off on social media because VO3 made these like gelatin looking fruit and they were cutting through it. And it was weird. I was like, I don't do ASMR. I just saw it on LinkedIn. I was like, this is so weird. Like, are we getting more into that? Because I'm kind of like rejecting it or doing my own cognitive dissonance on some of that stuff. Are we, because I'm rejecting it a little bit. I'm like, I don't really like this that much. I think it's cool, but I don't know. What are the trends coming up that marketers need to at least be aware of so they just don't avoid the pitfalls, or at least understand where like editing tactics are coming from?
I think that's a really good question, because I think a lot of people are rejecting it. Now, I spoke with a marketer who I met through LinkedIn, and she had been holding interviews with upwards of 20 different marketers, and she was asking people the same question. And I was towards the end, and she told me that by the time she got to me, my answer was actually the common answer that everybody's kind of been talking about. And that is, with AI becoming more and more prominent, people are going to seek human connection even more. And human connection that they can be sure is actual human, and not really, really, really good AI pretending to be human. So if you think of things like live videos, or even like live webinars, the type of content that you might put on your Instagram, Facebook stories, or a Snapchat story, the content that's a little bit grittier, a little bit more organic, less polished, that is going to be the content that people are looking for, because they want something real. And people go on social media for human connection. So the less human things become, the more humans people are going to seek out. And I do think that there's going to be an influx of AI, and I'm sure some of the AI videos will stick. But in all of that, people are going to gravitate even further towards the human element. So this is a great opportunity for a brand to have a face of the company, or multiple faces of the company. There's a brand who I really admire on LinkedIn. Well, they're all over, but I follow them on LinkedIn most closely. And it's actually a social media scheduling software. It's called Buffer, but they have an amazing employee engagement strategy. Their employees are they're content creators in and of themselves, and they talk about their own expertise. They talk about the challenges that they're facing at the company and overcoming, how they're fixing it, how they're working it. And in that, they're creating multiple touch points with different people online. So it's not just having one face of the brand, it's having many. So maybe I don't connect with, I'm going to make up names. Maybe I don't really connect with Sue, because she has a very overly technical way of speaking, but I might really connect with Jen who thinks a little bit more creatively. And then maybe there's somebody else who likes that other kind of speaking, that more technical, and connects with that even more. That kind of approach is really valuable. And not only do I think that's going to happen, I hope that's going to happen a little bit more, because that is going to really build relationships between a company and its followers. This brand in particular has a very, very loyal following. They do a lot right. But one of the big things is that outreach.
Gotcha. So what you're saying is that Descript's AI avatars aren't going to be popular, because they just released it, I think, like a couple of weeks ago, where you can actually like make yourself look like an AI avatar. And I'm like, I have Descript. I'm like, I'm good. I'm going to be myself.
I think it's going to like bounce over this way a little and then swing back. So people will start to do that, and they might do that for the novelty of it, but some might stick. I don't think that that's going to be the way everything trends, at least at the time of my speaking right now in June of 2025. I don't see it going that way.
I mean, do you see like a lot of like low level, like social media stuff, jobs like going away because of AI, just because it's easier just to have AI interpret things, or maybe do some low level content stuff so you don't need to hire somebody else? Do you see that happening in the future a little bit more often? Because I mean, they're all going to eventually take some jobs away. We're just not really quite sure which ones right now.
I think it's less of the jobs going away and more of the jobs shifting. I have to give credit to my sister on this one. She told me when electricity was invented, lamplighters became obsolete, but all of a sudden we needed electricians. So maybe there will be a subset of jobs that will go away because of AI. I think that it's going to be even more important to learn the skills that are going to make you successful with AI. I've heard many people say this. It's not AI that's going to take a marketer's job, but a marketer who knows how to use AI will end up taking that job, because it will just be a person who can work more cross-functionally. They can do more general activities. They can do it more efficiently. But as I mentioned earlier with the reporting, you still do need to have the critical thinking skills to give solid input, garbage in, garbage out. So if you can give that solid input and check on, at this time, at least, AI is still hallucinating. So check and make sure that the work is solid, that you're able to edit out the AI fingerprints so it doesn't turn into being just another, robot.
Got you. And people listening to this episode, they're wondering, where can they find you online to learn more about you?
LinkedIn is the best place to find me. My name is Amy Klein, and I have red hair. So if you see there, Amy Klein is not an uncommon name. So Amy Klein with red hair, that's me.
All right. Any final thoughts for the listeners?
None that I can think of right now. Thanks so much for having me.
Yes. Thank you, Amy, for joining my podcast and just speaking on AI content strategies, content creation, and social media strategies.
Of course. Have a good one.
And thank you for listening. As always, please subscribe to this podcast on all your favorite podcasting apps. Leave a 5-star review. It really does help with the rankings. Let me know how I am doing. And join me next week as I talk to another great thought leader in the PR and marketing industry. All right, guys, stay safe. Get to understanding how AI can help you and how you can fix AI's errors. And see you next week. Later.